All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever and wherever you're joining us. It is great to have you here. What a long, beautiful weekend with the rain, the slides, the road closures, the beach erosion. We need the rain so desperately, but we have this odd relationship with nature in which nature destroys a lot of our infrastructure along the way. So even as water supplies are being recharged, there's some pretty big issues with a lot of the infrastructure. What up with Tony? Come on, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Tony is here. It's just you and me today, brother. Yeah.
Oh.
Kim is on an extended weekend with her son, and the whole family, I think, is going, but it is her son's birthday. And so she is off for, the whole weekend.
What?
Yeah, I know. It's extraordinary. She'll be back Thursday.
That's more than a weekend.
Yeah, she took a serious weekend, but good for her. She hasn't taken any time off. She does like 40 shows.
Yeah.
So, so as the hardest working woman on YouTube, she deserves some time off. Wow, what a show today, everyone. David Cay Johnston, the Pulitzer Prize winner, joins us in the second hour. And I'm guessing you haven't seen two pieces he wrote just in the last couple of days that lay bare a couple of things. One thing is Trump, and the other thing is the Trump judgment, meaning the legal judgment against him. The judge's legal judgment has some immensely damaging wording that you must hear. We'll go over it with David. And the other thing that David details is something that he knows so well. I mean, he may know it better than anyone else on earth, apart from Trump and the constellation of people to run that Trump organization. And I'm talking about his finances. And David has been steeped in Trump finances for so long now. And he writes a piece that lays that bare as well. So I really think the fraud that is Donald Trump, as it's exposed, is damaging to Trump increasingly among independents. So if you only care about the vote, and it's sort of like the ship has sailed for you on Donald Trump, and I certainly could understand that, I still think from a voter's perspective, some of these things are both instructional and elucidative. So you'll learn something that may make you just scared to pull the lever, or embarrassed to pull the lever, or punch the hole for Donald Trump. Elucidative is a ding word. I also have news of politics that I'll get to. And later in the show, I have an update and a photo. The photo is of something I didn't think I'd ever see.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I didn't think, and I didn't tell you this, Tony, but I will.
Yeah, I'm about to say.
I will push the photo to you.
Okay.
I didn't think on a holiday, on a Monday, where I get this scream from Courtney, who says, "You got to get out here." And I go out, I'm thinking, what's happened? A tree's fallen? Or so. It's always something wrong when she screams like that, And so I go out to the front porch or stoop or whatever, and there on the front stoop is my bag, my luggage from Chile that has taken 2 months to arrive. Now, it's only one bag. There's still one other, actually bigger bag that has to come. But I will send you the pic, and we'll share it with everyone a little bit later. The other thing I must tell you is I think I made a mistake. We debated putting up, there's a new for the Daytona 500, which ran this weekend, there was a new spot that I'd done, and I just thought it was much different than the normal kind of spots I do, you know, and so put it up on our YouTube channel as a short. Because normally the NASCAR stuff I do is, you know, this weekend, the Daytona 500 starts in a way that it's never started before. It's all your NASCAR. This weekend on Fox. It's that kind of wah, wah, wah. This was the opposite, and it was so inventive and so well executed that, you know, all the stuff that I auditioned for, which is usually wah, 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 with grit, this spot stood apart. And so when it came together so beautifully that I threw it up on our YouTube channel. But here's my apology. I hashtagged it NASCAR, among other things, I think, in Daytona 500. So somebody pointed out, Mark, I love this, but now I'm getting fed in the algorithm a bunch of NASCAR stuff. So I'm sorry.
My bad.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I am sorry. I want to apologize to the Asian community.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American
you can
community.
always apologize to the Asian community. Never a bad thing. But anyway, that is happening too. But the big news of the weekend, let's cover it. First of all, I want to acknowledge all of you who have joined us here today. And in the chat, here it is, Russ, who said, I watched Mark's Daytona ad, and now YouTube algorithm thinks I like NASCAR. Very funny. Good day in Monterey. What's happening, Grady, in Monterey? By the way, there's news out of Monterey. I'm going to do it in That's Rich. I don't know that we're going to get to it today, but we might. Of the Jillionaire guy, you know what I'm talking about, right? Who bought up all that beachfront in Monterey. And now people are like, who is this guy? And their view, the guy and his family, is, hey, we're just, you know, rich people who are buying up a lot of great property along the beach. And the locals say, well, at least some of them, we don't want one person to own all of the Monterey coastline, which is, you know, an extreme take on that situation. But anyway, Grady, you may know something about it. We'll get to it. Smash the like button like a boss, if you would. Do it early. Get it out of the way. It costs you nothing.
With your iron rod.
And do share the show. You can share our shorts. You can share our videos. Anything that particularly stands out to you, it helps build the footprint. If you're on social media like Facebook, you kids who are on Facebook, that really helps us. And I hope you enjoyed our best of yesterday. Thank you, Tony, for kind of stitching it together. Thanks, we put together a few segments that were really good. I really enjoyed seeing them again. I watched the show, too, while I was doing one of my rare workouts. So, all right, that's basic business, but I do...
The Mark Thompson Show.
Oh, Daryl Leffler, how about this before I get to a chunk of Trump? Great best of ever. Wow. That's terrific.
What?
I know. You and Kim, of course, and your guests were riveting and still seem fresh. Awesome, awesome job, Tony, again.
Thanks, Tony.
You helped me kind of decide. I give you credit, Tony.
A little bit, I guess.
Yeah, honestly, I'm being very generous when I give Tony any credit at all in this case. Yeah, but still, I thank you. So
it works.
But really thank Daryl Leffler because we're crowdfunded, so big shout out. Yeah, and I'm not going to cry.
I'm not going to cry.
But I am in a crying way because my favorite former president has come out with more merch. Yes, let's do it. Here it is, your chunk of Trump.
Open wide. Ready? Here comes your chunk of Trump.
It's my favorite food.
With your first bite, here's Mark Thompson.
I have a feeling it's going to be beautiful.
If you're like me, you can't surround yourself, I should say, with enough stuff from the former president. He's launched a new sneaker line, everybody. That's right. Days after a judge has ordered Donald Trump to pay nearly $355 million, that on top of, as you know, the penalties, which I think total $88 million in the E. Jean Carroll case. There is Donald Trump. If you're watching on YouTube, he's holding up a pair of the Trump sneakers. That's right. The never surrender high tops. There they are. Right? You do have to surrender, of course, $400 to get the high tops. But they are, surprise, surprise, sold out. The president's official Trump sneakers sold out in a matter of hours, as you might imagine. There are people who want those sneakers. There had been 1,000 pairs of the sneakers available for purchase, according to the site. He's selling 2 versions of the sneakers. This might be a new product line for Trump. The sneakers that have a T and a 45 on the side, you can see them there on the right. They sell for $199. The cologne and perfume are also on sale. Yeah, how about that, everybody? Yeah. Victory 47 cologne, and I know what you're thinking. This is an SNL bit. Nope, it's not. It is the real thing. This country...
You just don't get it.
Yeah, you may not get it, but this country is drunk on Trump. Victory 47 cologne by President Trump is only $99, and you can pre-order it. And the Victory 47 perfume for the ladies...
Girl, you just... Woo.
You have that faint scent of insurrection on you. What is that? Oh, it's Victory 47 perfume by President Trump. Yes, if you want the aroma of fascism, how about Victory 47 cologne? There's never been anything like it. Is that right? There's never been anything like it. Feels as though it should work.
There's never been anything like this.
I think that right.
And this is their new hoax.
Okay, yeah. But you have to pre-order the cologne. These sneakers are sold out. Now, any kind of big announcement like this, and this was, on a holiday weekend, kind of a big deal. People came down there on big numbers. They were excited to see the continuing grift that is the president. There's certainly nothing illegal in slapping a bunch of gold coloring on a sneaker and putting your name on it. I mean, I have to say, you Trump haters, of all the stuff that Trump does that's illegal, of all the fraud that he generates, this really isn't part of it. Here it is, the sneaker. Go to the website. You actually get the sneaker for the money. So that's a very different dance than you normally do with Donald Trump, in which you throw a bunch of money at him and then, of course, you get nothing for it. Let's take a listen, though, to the less than hospitable response. But to be fair, the arena, now this is Sneaker Con. They're there for different sneakers. These are sneaker collectors. Like Albert falls into this category. He's a huge sneaker collector. And here's this guy who comes in, Trump, and, he thinks it's about him. Let's take a listen to his announcement.
Wow. A lot of emotion. There's a lot of emotion in this room. Thank you. Thank you. So nice. So the really nice thing is we have lines, and I want to thank Chase and I want to thank Alan, but we have...
Yeah, that was kind of an awkward moment, right? The Biden campaign slamming Trump's appearance at Sneaker Con. At least con is in the title, everybody. I got to say, that is a strong choice of a venue. Donald Trump, this is a quote from the Biden people, Donald Trump showing up to hawk bootleg off-whites is the closest he'll get to any Air Force Ones ever again for the rest of his life. Air Force Ones are also a sneaker. Very clever. Anyway, he's heading to Michigan now, the former president, I should say, to address supporters for the first time, really, since this legal judgment. As I say, we'll discuss that more with David Cay Johnston. There was booing. Tony, you're saying there was people were yelling F Biden also. It turned into a political rally a little bit. Is that what you were telling me? F. Joe Biden, I guess that is. Wow. Biden's not even there. But they just know that that's the great white hope. Donald Trump's yeah. And what was there something else, Tony, or not? I forget. I thought you mentioned him in there was something.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, here it is. Oh, my God. This woman is great. Stop. This woman is great. Oh, my God. This woman is having a nervous breakdown. She's so excited about Trump. He pulls her to the podium to share that nervous breakdown with the assembled mass this weekend at SneakerCon. Here we go.
Yes, we need him. He's a Christian. He's a good, honest man. They're after him for no reason. Go out and vote for Trump. Vote Trump. No paper. Go out and vote for Trump. He's a good man. Look at his family. They're all good kids. All good kids. Yes.
He hugs her and he walks with her off the stage. Wow. Yeah, pretty.
I think I'm the most honest human being, perhaps, that God ever created.
Well, apparently there's somebody who agrees with you, sir. And that's that lady. Look at his kids. It's great. I love how they look at the evidence. My God. Exactly. We're looking at the evidence. Meantime, in chunk of Trump, you may not be aware that if you live in a Trump building and there are Trump branded things that are buildings all over New York, it's hurting your real estate value. He's been on these high-end buildings. His name has been licensed in many instances. But people are saying now that these condos in high-rise buildings that are emblazoned with Trump's name, they've underperformed. This is according to sales data from 2 real estate tracking firms. There was also an analysis of data by the Columbia University economist, this Stingen van Nieuwerburg. And after he achieved the presidency in 2016, there it is. You can see the falling values of Donald Trump's condos relative to other Manhattan condos. It's pretty dramatic. 2016 is when this happened. In a 1-year window, condos in buildings that had the Trump logo went from selling at a 1% premium compared with similar units to selling for 4% less, meaning that Trump condos became a bargain among the city's luxury units. Even the Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue, that's one of the crowning achievements of his brand, with this 80-foot cascade of water. I mean, supposedly all of this, it's cascading against this huge slab from a quarry in Italy. It's all very luxurious. Even there, the average price per square foot went down almost 50%. So the condos in the 4 buildings where the Trump logo was removed at the behest of residents. Remember that at the beginning of his presidency? He was such a firebrand. He was so radioactive as a brand that people in homeowners associations say, I want to get this guy's name off of this building. The Trump logo was removed at the behest of residents, though, and in those buildings, sometimes even after a legal battle to remove the name, they have seen their value go back up. This analysis, is a quote, cleanly identifies that it is the Trump brand that is responsible for the value deterioration. Removing the Trump name from the building removes the loss associated with the name. So he is not winning among New Yorkers that way. And in people who have lived in these Trump, and you can see a picture of us, we're showing it now, them taking down the Trump name off that building. People who live in those buildings know that the name of Trump is hurting their real estate values. And finally, Donald Trump is nothing if he's not shameless. And they've set up a GoFundMe for Donald Trump's legal fees, which, as you know, are tens of millions of dollars. The GoFundMe goal is $355 million. That is the amount, of course, that Judge Engoron ordered Trump to pay in penalties in that civil fraud trial. By the way, I got into a big thing over the weekend. You know, I always say, I read your comments if you comment on something we talk about. And so there was maybe a David Cay short or something. I forget what it was, but somebody jumped on and said, this is, I think I have it here. I got into a big thing. I mean, this is terrible. I get into these, Tony, you would tell me, put it down and go,
Thanks, Tony.
Go do something else.
Or save it for the show.
Yes. So
One of
here
the two.
is save it for the show. I should have sent you this, but I'll just read it to you. Let me take my credibility glasses off for this. The person essentially said that fining a man for assessing his property differently than a judge does is pure lawlessness. I said, well, it's not just a judge's opinion. I mean, Trump did stuff like this on a grand scale. Trump's financial statement showed an office building known as 40 Wall Street as 72 stories. It was only 63 stories. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that Trump... Don't tell me it's some judge's opinion. I mean, this is what really was happening. So he comes back at me. This is on YouTube. But this is how completely wedded to this man, this cultish devotion to Trump, some people have. Even if that were true, Mark, it would not be illegal because the bank makes its judgments based on their assessment of market value. The banks even testify that they had no complaints. Maybe you should learn a little about stuff before you embarrass yourself on YouTube, is what the guy said. Now I'm really pissed.
Good day,
right?
sir.
So I come back. Where do you get your bullshit? It's you who are embarrassing yourself, I say. This is how, I just need to put this thing down. That's the whole effing reason for the fraud trial. Because his statements were objectively false. I said, I wouldn't normally insult anyone on here, but you're the one who fired the first insult, so get an effing clue. And then it goes on. But let me just say to you who cling to this man and feel that there was some arbitrariness and some political agenda about the judge's decision, I don't even think this is the most important case facing him. The guy engineered an attempted coup. That, to me, is much, much bigger. He tried to engineer this coup in many different ways we've detailed here before, legally, violently, etc. But this isn't the judge's opinion. It's the equivalent of you getting comps for a home you're going to buy or a condo you're going to purchase. I mean, you can't say, well, that's just the judge's opinion, or that's just the real estate agent's opinion. These are comps. Now, you can pay whatever you want, but these are comparable properties and values then that measure up against it. In this case, I gave you the example of, saying something 72 stories high when it's only 63 stories high. Saying something's 30,000 square feet, specifically as residence, when it's only 10,000 square feet. I mean, that's just an out-and-out fraud. And it goes on tax forms that he signed. So don't tell me that it's a judge's opinion. These are objective realities. Then he throws in, what do you know about, economics is whatever anyone will pay for it. You're getting loans based on established value. And that established value, the established part, is based on objective reality. That's what's going on there. So, at the end of it, at the end of like 5 back and forths, I just dropped it. But anyway, I'll finish up just by saying that there is this GoFundMe. So maybe this guy would like to be part of it. They've set up this goal of $355 million. Tony has it on screen for you if you want to be part of it. And if you want to help this guy, I get like that one YouTube commenter might want to. Trump, with interest, could end up having to pay more than $450 million, according to the New York Attorney General's office. They started this fundraiser, and it was started by Elena Cardone, the wife of investor Grant Cardone, who's an entrepreneur. She said, I stand unwaveringly with President Donald Trump in the face of what I see as unprecedented and unfair treatment by certain judicial elements in New York. And there's the GoFundMe page. The last thing I'll say, and then I'm going to close this out, this chunk of Trump. I'll just say that Trump would have been better off with his real wish. You know what his real wish was? It wasn't to be president. He ran to build his brand. It was actually a genius plan. You run to build your brand. You run to raise your profile in all the ways that Trump does. You raise your profile and you can actually get more money. You can get greater loans. You can essentially perpetuate the fraud that you'd perpetuated to that point. But when he won the presidency, it invited the scrutiny that he's now enduring. And with the scrutiny comes the legal cases and what we've seen. By catching the car, the dog ends up in a much worse place. That's your chunk of Trump.
That's it for this edition.
Well, I really enjoyed it.
But make sure to join us again next time
I think you might want to listen. There's nothing wrong with listening.
for another chunk of Trump.
Smash the like button like a boss.
With your iron rod.
With your iron rod. Damn it, smash it like a boss.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
Yeah. Sandra Thomas. What up, Sandra Thomas? Sandra, thank you and a big shout out.
Big shout
Big
out.
shout out for a super sticker for 20. Come on. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I saw that movie over the weekend that everybody's very up on. It was well recommended by our culture blaster here. I'm talking about, anyone? American Fiction is the answer we were looking for. Yeah. American Fiction is really good. We watched it yesterday, and I recommend it. It may, I liked American Fiction. I liked, I liked Anatomy of a Fall. That's a really fascinating movie, much different. American Fiction, I think everybody would really enjoy. And what a cast. I mean, they just crush it. It's so great. But it's a really good story and a great concept and a great idea. And I liked, what else did I like, Tony? Do you know?
Thanks, Tony. Was it as good as Godzilla?
Well, Godzilla is Tony's. Yeah, Godzilla is Tony's pick for the Oscar.
Should win all of them.
He really wants to see Godzilla rock it. Look, Godzilla, I hear, is spectacular. I can't wait to see it, actually. I mean, everybody, including the Culture Blaster, said it's really great. I loved American Fiction. I also liked The Holdovers. Yeah, I like that. Somebody from The Holdovers in the cast is going to be on soon. So I'm hoping that we'll get that organized and everybody will be happy. But I really recommend both those movies. Apart from that, I'm trying to think if I saw anything I need to tell you about. No. Working on some really cool guests coming up in the next few weeks. I think you'll be very happy. And we're working on new ways to expand our reach of this show. So appreciate all the ways you share it and get that done as well.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It really does help. Hey, Tony, do you want to do a little Law and Disorder here before we get to Jefferson Graham?
If you want to.
Yeah. So Jefferson Graham is coming up. He's got he's got a great follow-up to the first thing he was talking about when he was here for those AR glasses or the VR glasses, the ones that Apple is selling. There's a terrific now second chapter to that story, and he'll share it with us when he comes in. But before we get to that, I'd love to do a little Law and Disorder. Let's do it.
In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law, you're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
A Texas man convicted of spitting at Lubbock cops was sentenced to 70 years in prison.
What?
That's what I said. His charges were based on allegations that he hit a woman multiple times in the face and left her with visible injuries. So as it turns out, oh, is that right? No, wait a minute. He's the same guy, right? Pearson, yeah? Let me just make sure I've got the same guy. 36-year-old Larry Pearson. Yeah, that's him. So here's what happened. He was arrested for domestic violence. And based on those allegations I was mentioning, he hit a woman multiple times in the face, left her with visible injuries. After he was arrested, he was placed in a patrol vehicle. Got angry because she was not arrested. Only he was arrested. He began kicking the door of the police cruiser. When the officers opened the door, told him to stop, he spat at them and continued to do so. He also continued to spit at them when he arrived at the Lubbock County Detention Center, which is lovely this time of year, I might add, the Lubbock County Detention Center. If you get a time down that Lubbock way to swing by there, you may want to. Pearson ultimately found guilty by a jury of 2 counts of harassment of a public servant. On that, then he was sentenced because he was convicted previously of aggravated robbery and family violence. So this guy was, yeah. The 70-year sentence would not be handed down, they say, the court says, to someone for something like this normally if they'd never been in trouble with the law before. If you're going to live a life of crime, said the prosecutor, you're going to do that among other criminals. Wow.
What he's got going here is a situation.
70 years. So as it turns out, it was the spitting that was just like an add-on, you know. Burglars in India. I love this story. I have to tell you, I saw this story on Saturday, and I thought, damn it, I wish we were doing a show today just so I could share this story. Thieves in southern India break into a noted film director's house. They take gold, they take silver, they take cash. They make a clean getaway. Days later, they go back to the same house and they leave in a small plastic bag something wrapped up in a white handkerchief. It was a medal for a prestigious national award for that director that they had stolen with all the other stuff I just mentioned. He'd won it in 2021 for one of his films. And there was a note. The note said, "Sir, please forgive us. Your hard work belongs to you alone." He grabbed the plastic bag and the medal and ran down to the police station and said, "Dust this for prints." Yeah, he wasn't particularly sentimental about the return. But that is a wild, to me, that is a wild comment on how they watched this guy's movies and they didn't want to take his one award for those films. That's Law and Disorder for today.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
Smash that like button like a boss. Jefferson Graham is next as we continue.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Feels great, baby.
Let me kick down the door and talk to my cheap sons and daughters.
No context will suffice to explain the hurt and anguish caused by my words. I apologize to all who have been hurt.
I stand corrected. I misspoke. My words upset so many people.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
God bless America. The end.
There's never been anything like this. Do I hit it long? Is Trump strong? Huh?
Who is having that conversation?
He's fantastic.
That's not fake. That's real.
The science is ridiculous.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
If you get it in order, you get extra points.
Listen to me. I don't want to hear you.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
This is a word from the Lord, and he's not happy.
There is no defense for my conduct. It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
Don't ever use that word.
You get nothing.
What's a guilty pleasure to do that?
Seriously, what the
Tony, what happened there?
Sorry, I was trying to find other stuff. Sorry about that.
No, I sent you a message, and I sent you multiple messages.
I thought you meant for the article, not that during that. Sorry about that.
Tony, this represents your first major F-up in the new year, if I can just say that.
Yeah. And we have like peak viewers today, too.
Would you like to apologize? We do. What apology do you feel? Would you like just the whoopee, my bad? That's kind of the one you've sort of given me, which is, oh, sorry, thought you were doing something else, and sorry about that. Or would you like something more profound, like, where is, it was wrong, it was stupid.
Yeah, it was. I've been up since 3. I'm sorry.
I think my bad is enough.
My bad.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Fine. Okay, we'll go there. Without any further delay. That's all right, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Without any further delay, let's bring him on now. You know, he was the former tech writer for USA Today. Now he's out on his own. Photo Walks TV. His Substack is terrific. So many great tips from the great Jefferson Graham. Hi, Jefferson.
Hi. Good to see you. I apologize. I want to be a better person.
Well, I mean, that is what we like. I mean, you find there's a certain cleansing quality that a good apology has.
Yeah, I'm sorry for what I did.
had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I don't think. But I would say this, Jeff, just because we're talking apologies. A big producer once said to me, there's nothing easier than an apology, especially if you don't really mean it. But I have to say, I actually do not subscribe to that. I think an apology, if you don't mean it, is really hard. You know, people who apologize and, a real sincere apology that you're not actually sincere about, I think that's very difficult. But this producer, for him, it was
a kindergarten apology you're not a fan of. Sorry.
Yeah, that's right. That's not as strong. And I'm sorry if you were offended. Yeah. That's the non-apology apology. Yeah.
But you started it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. Your lighting is spectacular. Look at Jeff.
Oh, thank you.
Look at Jeff's lighting, Tony. I mean, it's just...
Thanks, Tony.
It's incredible. I have to say that my alabaster white skin looks even more cadaverous and awful next to your beautiful lighting. But I digress.
I have a bunch of new lights. Let's bring them over. Let's have some fun.
All right. Yeah. I would like to, let's do it. Let's do it.
They do this to me all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it for.
They do. They make me look, like a hospital patient next to Jeff.
I think you look great.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Girl, you just woo.
All right. Now let's talk about the second chapter in this Apple headset thing. They have the coolest commercials. They have a big price tag on them, and they actually were selling pretty well.
Yes, they were.
You had a issue that you'd raised before, just to remind everyone, as to their, your usability. Like, what do you use them for? They're just so now review your issues with them if you could, maybe just briefly, and then tell us what's happened with them.
My issue was that it's really cool technology and it looks fantastic in a demo. And then you say, now what? What am I going to do with this thing? You're going to come home and you're going to strap it to your head and you're going to look at some photos and videos, and that'll last 10 to 15 minutes. If that, you might watch a half an hour of a movie or a television show, but not much longer because the headset is going to start to hurt. And some people have been actually using it as a second monitor, face computing and putting their hands up in the air, basically as a virtual mouse. They can actually run it, but I can't imagine being really comfortable editing photos or writing an article or whatever on it. But that said, people are returning it because Apple has one of the greatest return policies. Buy it, return it in 2 weeks, no questions asked. So when Apple comes out with a new product and it's the hottest, Apple is the hottest company around. It's been this way for many years, and everybody wants it and they want their pictures with it and they want to talk about it. Pay $3,500 for it and then return it within 2 weeks and you're done. That is great. That really is great. I mean, honestly, if I'd known that, I might have. It's not my thing necessarily to try. I might have tried it. I think the idea of watching a movie or whatever, I think that's a really cool idea. I love that. One of my frustrations with movie watching at home is the screen's just not big enough. The experience isn't immersive enough. And immersive is a ding word. It's just you can only become so involved in something that you're separated from because of the size of the screen and the audio, et cetera. I agree, but Courtney would feel left out. It's true. That's the problem. You can only watch it by yourself. Yeah. At my home, I watch movies with my wife, so that's what we do. And I think it would look great. I think it'd be wonderful. I don't think you could last the full 2 hours, though, because I think it would just start uncomfortable. Yeah, that's wild. It's uncomfortable. But I love IMAX movies, right? You probably do too, right? You love the giant
but I mean, you
screen.
have to go to an IMAX theater for those. And I will say this, and I don't mean to be anti-romantic, but if you're looking for an excuse to only watch the movie by yourself and not have to, then this is a great one. You got the only you can watch it. So it does work that way. Airplanes. Right? Exactly. Yeah. It's the airplane. It's the airplane syndrome. That's wild, though. So you think, on balance, this will still be a success for Apple, or do you think there'll be returns on the numbers that will draw that into question? Oh well, they'll do fine. Apple will do fine, and they're not the sort of company that would turn back and say, "Well, we made a mistake." The Apple Watch was a disaster when it came out, and they fixed it. There'll be another version of this thing, and I'm sure their expectations they did not expect this to be iPhone size. So the returns are just average, to be expected. But for a $3,500 product, of course they're going to return it. Vision Pro will screw up your eyes, says Phineas. Interesting. I want to ask you about something else that is truly breakthrough. Yeah. And you can tell me how, it's clearly breakthrough, but tell me its effects. This Sora, S-O-R-A, this is a way, maybe you can describe it better than I, but essentially where AI will create a video, a movie even, or a short movie, in response to your description. That is to say, you can just describe what you want, and that builds the scene for you, and it's spectacular. Yeah, a 1 minute clip. Show me a young woman walking through Chinatown at night. Show me a Jeep driving down a dirt road in Arizona or whatever. Yeah, Tony's got it up now. It's unreal. Go ahead, keep going. Yeah, so the quality is out of this world. The snag is they made an announcement. They said they could do it, but good luck, nobody could use it. Okay, so it's not open for prime time. It's not open for users. They're showing it off to a few engineers and a few influencers, but we can't get a hold of it. So we don't know,
how hard it is to use it. Mid-Journey is another thing. You can create photos out of AI. It's very hard to use. Very, very, very hard to use. So I am blown away, as most people are. My son, who does animation in Japan, said to me, "It's done. It's over." Why would anybody hire me to do anything when they could just click a few buttons on here? Well, here's the deal. We have brains. We use them. We have our own unique vision, and that AI is not going to take away.
It is astounding how good it is, though.
Yeah, I agree.
And I also agree with what you're saying, which is that the inventiveness with which you approach this technology is still human-based inventiveness. I mean, the creativity, what you can do with this technology is boundless on some level. The human mind and creativity is boundless, but this is amazing. Look at these scenes. All of what you've just seen over the last 90 seconds, it was all generated based on essentially text, right? I mean, it was just a description, a text prompt. Describe, I want a frontier scene along a river. I want a character inside right?
Yeah.
Inside a globe, inside a Japanese garden, whatever. It's unreal, but apparently it's not ready for prime time yet.
And this is why they went on strike. Right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you can see the power of AI to affect so many different industries. You'd think this is it's one thing to have things computer generated. That dates back CGI, right? Dates back, decades, even the last
But
couple.
they had to work at it. It took them. They didn't get done in 2 minutes. It took months and months of years for them to do Shrek, which was CGI, right? And all the special effects in any movie you want to mention. Yeah.
Well, 23 years ago, they did the movie Gladiator, and I remember watching back then. This is one of the things I really miss. I guess you can find some of this stuff on YouTube now. They had conversations with the filmmaker as the movie's playing. It was a separate track you could put in, the deleted scenes, all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things they showed you was Rome at that time that they shot Gladiator and the handful of people around, and then the computer-generated aspect of Rome, where they, of course, finished off the Colosseum. Now it's completely undamaged, and they add all of these other structures and people, etc. And it was fascinating. And you thought, wow, this is 23 years ago. You thought, man, the power of creating an image. And now, as you say, the ease with which you can create that image and maybe just describe the image is literally going to put people out of work, probably. Because what I just described, you don't need to create. You just go, I just need a, Roman street scene from whatever the year, right?
Yeah, but my experience with AI is every time I do a prompt, I have to do it 10, 20, 30, 40 times over and over and over again until I get something. We don't know how long it took these people to get what they got. And this is no knock on them because it is amazing. But I just do not think it is going to be as easy for people once it gets into our hands.
That's a great point that Jefferson Graham has just made. Like, what did it take them to get these images? How many prompts? That would have been the thing to post. And they don't post it yet. All right, before we finish up, I want to ask you about San Francisco.
Yes.
The Wall Street Journal thinks, that San Francisco is coming back thanks to
AI. AI. Yeah. All the best engineers are in San Francisco, and all the hot companies are in San Francisco. And, I never doubted for a minute that San Francisco was going to come back. When you've got one of the most beautiful cities in the world, you can't just let it go to rot. You still have the Golden Gate Bridge. You still have the water. You still have the mountains. You still have Coit Tower. You still have Embarcadero. It's still one of the greatest cities in the world, and there'll be new leadership soon. And, some new money coming in, and San Francisco is going to be bigger and better than ever. That's my prediction.
Well, I hope you're right, and I agree with you completely. I think it's just One of the most beautiful, if not the most beautiful city. I've lived there. I love it. I still love it. And I just can't believe that it's fallen the way it has. But I know that, as you say, that fall can't continue because of all the things that you've detailed. Hey, I saw that Walmart is buying Vizio for over $2 billion this deal.
Yeah.
Tell me, Vizio was one of those brands that just seemed like it had a meteoric rise.
Vizio was a Chinese company that was best known for making cheap but great-looking TVs. Period. Right. And so every hotel room, every motel, everywhere you went, you saw Vizio TVs because it was, the best way to get a decent TV for not a lot of money. Along the way, they started getting very grabby on information, and they started doing a lot of targeting and monitoring what you were watching without telling you, and then handing it over to advertising companies. And so they have built this advertising powerhouse based on this knowledge that they have gleaned. $2 billion is a lot to spend for a TV manufacturer because you know what the profit is on those TVs? I mean, it's $10. It's very, very little. But
I
clearly,
didn't know that.
Yeah, clearly. What's the last time you bought a TV? It's like $300, right? Walk into a Target, you'll find TVs $300 for a 50-inch TV, which is too small for Mark Thompson. But for for a lot of people, it's a pretty good set. Even the bigger sets are $500. Remember, years ago we would be paying $1,000, $2,000 for a TV. You'd get a Sony Trinitron, and keep it forever.
Sure.
So anyway, that's what's going on with Vizio. Though the cheap mantle
let me just understand
is now
something.
TCL.
The data that you described that they mine based on your viewing.
Yeah.
Are you saying that's been part of this deal? That is what Walmart is buying? They're essentially buying data on people that is included in that Vizio deal?
Well, as part of the
it's
data,
implied, you're saying.
As part of the data, they built up this huge advertising business. It's the old thing where you turn on the TV and you instead of seeing your program guide, you're seeing an ad at the top, and then you have to fish around there to get some of that stuff out of your way. So if you use some of Vizio's tools, they have a lot of ads in there.
I see.
And that's what they want to have part of. By the way, TCL is now the leader in cheap Chinese TVs.
So, is that it's a new one now?
Yeah, well, TCL's been around for a few years, but they're the ones who dominate Target and Walmart and some of the other cheaper retailers.
Jefferson Graham, I look forward to your photo walks. Your series
Venice.
Is on YouTube.
We're going to be in Venice Beach on Saturday. I think this is the best one I've done yet. You'll be out on Saturday. Yes, so I hope you'll tune in.
So it's your. When are you going to do another thing where you meet with people and they can take a walk with you and you teach them how to? Don't you do?
Yeah, I did one. I did one on Sunday, but the storm kind of scared away people. But let's schedule one and let's have you there, and you could join me.
Well, I'll take a meeting on that. I mean,
Yeah.
I was asking just when your next one was. I wasn't asking you to set a personal appearance up for me.
Right. I don't have something scheduled, but I will.
I mean,
and we will announce the date next week.
You'll have to go through my people. All right. Well, let's stay in touch. Jefferson Graham, you can find him there on Substack, and you can also find Photo Walks TV. Please subscribe. Jeff, love talking to you. Thanks so much for being here.
Same here. Bye-bye.
All right. Jefferson Graham, everybody.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I've looked forward to talking to this guy. He has honestly been the most popular guy in media because of the fact that he's steeped in information about Donald Trump and Donald Trump's finances, which have been the focus of so much, most recently, the legal case against Trump and the legal judgment against Trump. But his latest two columns, as I was telling you about at the beginning of the show, really lay bare the fraud that is Donald Trump. And he also points to lines in the judgment on the part of Judge Engoron that essentially buttress the general notion that Donald Trump is just a fraud machine and his businesses have been fraud machines. Here he is, the Pulitzer Prize winner, multiple best-selling author, with us on Tuesdays with David Cay Johnston.
Hello,
David Cay
Mark.
Johnston,
Good to be with
you have been everywhere. CNN, MSNBC. They want their David Cay Johnston.
And writing a bunch of pieces and teaching my class, so I'm a little ragged at the moment, but let's go.
You really have been prolific in your writing, and I wonder if we could just go through some of that.
Sure.
Essentially, you point to a line or two in Judge Engoron's judgments that have been handed down, the judgment against Donald Trump, that point to the fraud machine that is Trump. And then we'll get to some of the moves beyond that. But I thought that was a great thing to underscore.
Well, I described Judge Engoron's ruling as the sequel to The Art of the Deal. And, well, there were sort of, Trump is a blowhard reviews. Nobody at the time that The Art of the Deal came out in the 1980s said, this is the story of one criminal act after another, lying, cheating, deceiving, and bragging about it, which is exactly what I read in it. It was a road guide to being a con artist. And what Engoron does is show that every single Trump witness at the trial, except for one, and the judge takes careful note of that, lied on the stand. Donald lied, his 3 grown children lied, the quote-unquote experts, some of whom had no expertise at all but got paid over $250,000, lied. And, one of the things I've always perversely admired about Donald is his ability to get people to lie for him. And indeed, he's gotten people like Alan Weiselberg to literally go to prison for him. And the only comparison I would make is years ago at the LA Times, I spent several months with a mob hitman who was dying. And every time I would call an FBI agent or detective to ask about him to verify his stories, the first thing he'd say is, I haven't talked to Harry in years. How's he doing? Because all of us respected the fact that Harry, while he was in a terrible business, he never hurt innocent people. He was very efficient about the people he was assigned to kill or beat up, and he never got arrested because he was so good. And so the police chief in, I forget if it was Glendale or Burbank, who'd handled one of the murders, and a couple of FBI agents, they all had this perverse admiration for Harry because he was good at what he did. Well, if your measure is how good a con artist is Donald, man, you got to admire the man.
You said that as much in one of your columns. You said this is the greatest con man in modern history.
Yeah. Yep.
And you also note, I think this is in the New Republic piece. Yeah. Here it is. Judge Engoron's ruling is a detailed roadmap to Trump's thievery. We're going to have a link. Tony, I want to put a link to both of these pieces in the description, both for the video that comes from this and for the show, if you would please. Okay. But this 92-page ruling, David Cay Johnston writes, establishes that Trump isn't a business genius, a modern Midas who turns everything he touches to gold. Instead, the former TV entertainer and real estate mogul is simply a crook, a white-collar thief who uses flattery, threats, lies, and an ink pen to rip off everyone he can, particularly banks and insurance companies. Engoron's opinion provides a roadmap to understanding Trump's outrageous behavior and thus what we should expect from a second Trump administration. I thought that was really sticking the landing, Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's the opinion is out there on the internet. If you search for it, if you want to read it, it is very brilliantly and carefully written. And one of the key things at the end is the judge points out that it's almost pathological, this lying behavior. And the judge points out that there's no remorse or contrition. There's no acknowledgement that we might have done something wrong. And that's part of Donald's shtick. He was asked during the 2016 campaign by a radio host here in Rochester, well, Donald is a Christian. When was the last time you asked God for forgiveness? And if you're an actual Christian, you're in a constant state of seeking forgiveness. And Donald said, ask for what? Ask for forgiveness? Well, I've never done anything in my life that would require me to ask for forgiveness from anyone. What more do you need to know that the man, when he says, I'm a Christian, and gets all these Christians to back him, that it's just nonsense?
Well, Christianity and the religious right are beginning to split. mainstream Christians and the extreme religious right beginning to split. That for another day. But it's interesting, even when I hear Christianity, it's like, well, what kind of Christian are you? Are you a mainstream
a real
old school
one
Christian?
Or a faux
one? Right. But the lack of contrition part that you point to in Engoron's statements in the judgment, because of this lack of contrition and because he feels that baked into the Trump way of doing business is this fraud that continues to happen on the part of all officers. And this is clearly like it's in the DNA of Trump. So they built in a system, David Cay Johnston, whereby there's a lifeguard on the beach now for these 3 years that he's, right? Isn't that how it works?
He's much more than a lifeguard. Judge Engoron at the beginning of this hearing revoked all of Trump's business licenses. And being New York, we can't call them that. We call them business certificates. An appeals court reinstated the licenses until the trial was over. Well, the judge did something much better than giving a corporate death penalty. He removed Trump from running the company for 3 years, at least, minimum of 3 years, his sons for at least 2 years. He expanded the powers of the monitor, retired Judge Barbara Jones, from reviewing financial transactions after they occur to approving them in advance because they had made all sorts of improper movements of money under the court's order while the trial was going on. And he imposed on Trump someone he called the independent compliance monitor. Basically, this person's going to run the company. I mean, the ordinary bills will get paid, right? The bartender at the Westminster golf course is going to get his paycheck, and the vendor who delivers wine and cheese is going to get paid. But any other transactions will have to run through this independent compliance monitor who Trump has to pay for. So essentially, Donald Trump is out of business, at least for 3 years. This was the man who claims he's the greatest business genius of all time. Right.
You also point out specifics, because I got into a back and forth on, I don't know why I do this, but I've seen you do it on X or Twitter also from time to time. Yeah, with these guys who go, well, this is an arbitrary decision on the part of a judge to rule a man's financial statement is fraud. That seemed to be so, manifestly ridiculous.
There was extraordinary amounts of testimony, and what the judge does is show that there's testimony by Alan Weiselberg that he didn't know about anything. Well, really, Forbes magazine has an audio recording of you saying exactly that. Ivanka Trump goes, I don't remember any of, I wasn't involved in the details. Really? Look at these emails that you wrote and these things you recorded. And he just eviscerates every single witness except the one guy who was very careful to tell the truth on the side of Trump.
Trump's financial statement showed an office building known as 40 Wall Street with 72 stories when it was only 63, inventing $50 million of bogus value, and showed $64 million of net operating income when it was almost $9 million in the red. I mean, this is just, he just makes it up. I mean, this isn't even being slick. This is just, you make it up. What's that? Did I lose David?
No, I'm here.
Okay, good. So now to the future, the next few moves for Donald Trump. I mean, both the legal and the financial, David. Can you speak to that?
Well, I have a piece of DC Report that says Trump's next move will probably be to file personal bankruptcy. And there's a whole bunch of people who've jumped on Twitter and Threads to say that's ridiculous. He can't do that. That's what Alex Jones, the conspiracy theorist, did to delay paying. That's what Rudy Giuliani did in December to delay paying. And Trump, I believe, will do this by March 12th, Monday, March 12th, 20 days from now. Donald Trump either has to put up $83 million to appeal the E. Jean Carroll second defamation ruling, or he has to get a bond, which will cost him a minimum of $17 million, and someone to guarantee the payment of the other 80% in order to appeal. If he doesn't come up with a bond or cash, he cannot appeal. The order is final. She can start enforcement proceedings to collect. If he files bankruptcy, and I quote one of my colleagues at Syracuse University College of Law, Gregory German, who teaches bankruptcy law and runs a bankruptcy clinic, as saying that there's no point in Trump putting the Trump organization into bankruptcy because it won't protect him at all. The orders are against him personally, and he's the sole owner. And all he can get is delay. Well, Donald's goal is to delay everything until November 6th, the day after the presidential election. And some people have come back and said, well, he'll have to file detailed financial statements, and if he lies in them, that's not A, going to worry Trump. B, he will find ways to file partial statements and you can amend them later. Alex Jones has held off the Sandy Hook elementary school parents and widowers of the teachers and others who were killed for more than 2 years with this kind of a technique. And so I may be wrong. You know, you've heard me say many times on this show that my batting average on my Trump predictions is 1,000. Having done more than 1,000 articles, if I'm wrong on this one, my batting average will drop to 999. I'll accept that. And if I'm wrong, come December 12th, if Donald hasn't filed personal bankruptcy, trust me, there will be a piece. It will go up once the day is over, the morning of the 13th, saying, well, I got it wrong, folks. Donald didn't file bankruptcy. But it is the most logical thing for him to do. And why haven't you heard this anywhere else? Because most journalists only write about, what's happened. I put this up in a couple of journalism forums saying news from the future.
From the near future.
Yes.
The idea, though, that he could, by declaring personal bankruptcy, delay having to write a check to E. Jean Carroll, et cetera, delay the settlements. That makes total sense. How long can he delay, David Cay Johnston?
Well, so far, Alex Jones has gone 2 years, but all he wants to do is delay past the election. And I'm sure many listeners and viewers are saying to themselves, wait a minute, if he files personal bankruptcy, it destroys his image as the modern Midas and the man who turns everything to gold. Nah, Donald has, I can tell you what his speech will be. Yes, I filed personal bankruptcy because the fascist, Marxist, liberal, radical, invade America, pro-China crowd forced me to do this. And you know what? They're going to force you to do it. They're going to take your 401k. They're going to take your house. If you don't stand with me, you're going to lose everything. They're going to steal it all. That's what he'll say, or some variation close to that.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
true
I'm
believers
wrong.
will buy that.
Right.
The true believers will buy it. It'll be incredibly interesting to see if millions of people who are they don't like Biden supporters, if they go along with this malarkey.
Well, isn't it really all then about that? Because the political ripple effects are really what this is about, David. It's funny. I am now swinging over to the, I would say, vigorously defending Biden group because of the way that he's being assailed, not by the right, but by the left. I mean, they are all over him like a bad smell to drop out of the election. And I get it. He reads older. He is older. And as a campaigner, he doesn't make the grade because of the demands of campaigning. But I'd suggest that the people he put around him, this administration, and his own ability to navigate some very tough times, make his presidency a success in the main.
Oh, I think that he is incredibly successful. The New York Times on Friday had an article, 3 surprising lessons from the resilient job market. And it had this interesting line in it. The 2024 version is the gap in unemployment between Black and white Americans is at a near record low. Job opportunities have improved for people with disabilities, criminal records, and low levels of formal education. Wages are rising for all income groups, and now that inflation has cooled, the increases in pay are outpacing price increases. And, the gasoline is essentially $1 cheaper than it was at the peak. Price of eggs has fallen very substantially. We know from government data that other people have analyzed that half of our inflation right now is just corporate greed. It's companies raising prices. And the government's very sophisticated about its analyzing this stuff. If you were selling a candy bar that weighed 1 ounce and you now sell one that weighs 0.8 of an ounce, they adjust the price for that. If your box of cereal has, 2 weeks of breakfast instead of 2 weeks and a couple of days, they adjust for that. And all of the economic indicators are very strong. That doesn't mean there aren't individuals who are doing badly. There are people who do badly in a great economy. There are people like my grandfather, who I never met and never had anything to do with, who got rich during the Great Depression because he had cash and he used it ruthlessly against other people. So you have to look at the whole of our society. And the fact is, lots of jobs available, lots of people quitting, what are called voluntary quits. That tells you people are confident they will get another job. And, I'm 75 years old, and I literally get phone calls from people offering me jobs, and not necessarily in journalism.
Right.
And I'm like, thanks. That ship sailed a long time ago. My wife, who's a retired CEO and is a couple of years younger than me, same thing. She keeps getting calls from people because they can't find people to do lots of jobs, including highly paid jobs.
Well, I think the incompetence of the GOP, to get really anything done except these, half-assed bankruptcies or whatever they're, half-assed impeachments.
Impeachment.
Yeah, they speak to sort of, the feckless nature of that crew. And I just wonder, though, David, you've really got an insanely damaged candidate and toxic, odious candidate in Donald Trump. Right. And then somehow he's able to run this race against a guy who really the big slam against him is his age, Right.
So the Democrats have never been good. I'm looking at the chat. Democrats have not for years been good at messaging. It's extraordinary. The party that used to be, without question, the party of working people has lost a lot of organizing skills, and the criticism that it is dominated by educated people is not unreasonable. On the other hand, Joe Biden is clearly supremely confident of what he's doing, and my suspicion, and we'll know this after all this is over, is that Biden doesn't want to get out and get in the fight too early. He doesn't want to peak. He doesn't want news organizations to go, it's old news. Joe said that 6 months ago. So he's biding his time, and he's also letting Donald be Donald. I mean, Donald Trump basically said to Vladimir Putin the other day, go attack all the countries you want to in Eastern Europe. And that's exactly what Putin has been on the record for 25 years as saying he wants to do. He wants to put Hungary and the 3 Baltic republics and Poland back under the boot of the Kremlin. And I don't think that's going to sit well with most Americans. I could be wrong, but I don't think most Americans are going to value Vladimir Putin's murderous dictatorship and the loss of freedom for all those people who lived and grew up under the Soviet Empire, going back under his boot.
The way they argue it, David, of course, is not that way. They suggest, a lot of what, for example, is in that argument is fine, but it doesn't really address our interests here at home. We're spending too much money on foreign. Now, I'd suggest, based on what you just said, that it very much addresses our interests. We want a free Ukraine.
I would fault the Democrats, other than some of the members of Congress who are mostly talking on MSNBC. They're not showing up elsewhere, for not getting across 2 facts. One of them is our interests are absolutely at hand, because if Europe is dominated by Vladimir Putin, it's very bad for our economy, for the future of our liberties and freedom, and puts us at risk of a shooting war with a nuclear power. And secondly, about 93% of the aid to Ukraine is a jobs program in America. It's making bullets and mortar shells and tanks here in America that we then give to the Ukrainians who've been using that equipment very, very well. And the amount of money we've spent, which is infinitesimal over the last 2 years compared to the size of our federal budget, the best estimates I've read from the Institute of the Study of War and some other folks are, we have essentially degraded of the working war machinery of Russia, tanks, armored personnel carriers, helicopters. We've taken out half of it. My goodness.
Yeah, I mean, that's right.
Putin less of a threat to us. And why would we stop? Let's keep going. Let's make Putin, put out all his effort. I'm sorry that 300,000 Russian soldiers have been killed or are casualties, meaning that they've been taken out of combat because they were injured. But we got to stop this guy. And he is so murderous that the Russian helicopter pilot who took his helicopter and flew it over to the Ukrainians,
right,
and then left the war scene and went to live in Spain, they assassinated him a couple of days ago.
They killed him. That's exactly right.
Yeah. And he will do that. He has no regard for anything but his power as the modern czar, and he will kill anyone, including Viktor Navalny, who gets in his way. And like Donald Trump, there's no sense of remorse. Of course, this is what I do. This is who I am. I'm special.
Well, the reality is also anybody who, even in Navalny's memorials, they rallied hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people were rounded up and arrested. So, there is just not a sense of freedom of protest, and you've got a literal squashing of any pushback on Vladimir Putin. In my last
Mark, let me be clear about something if I can. I would love to have our defense budget be a half or a third of what it is. I very much wish that was the case, but I recognize we live in a very dangerous world with people who, just because we're the world leader, don't like us, and because we've made lots of terrible policy judgments, don't like us. And the reality is, if we don't address Putin, we will embolden other dictators both to harm their own people, and in some cases, as we see with China and President Xi, take over other real estate the way that Putin has done in Ukraine.
Well, the NATO statements that Trump made, just as far as that goes, you'd think that, that is something that should haunt Trump and that campaign. We'll see if it does. I'm seeing in the chat, David, and I'll let you go here in a minute, but just on the politics of it all, I see in the chat, but those who, like Dave, is it Axelrod, who is, he's pretty solid as an opinion. He's very concerned. The anxiety that runs through the Democrats as to Joe Biden's abilities, both on the stump as a campaigner and just moving forward, they seem to be overtaking any kind of sense of the accomplishments. Is this something, I guess what I'm asking you is this a phenomenon that is generated, sort of self-generated? Or is this a reality? Are they responding to an objective reality?
There's a clear split among professionals in the Democratic Party about what to do here. And I would point out that changing your horse in the middle of a race is an extraordinarily risky proposition. And who is it you're going to put forward who has the record and the name recognition and can do a better job? Nobody, not David Axelrod or anybody else who I've seen, is disputing that on the ability to get laws passed, to spend money in thoughtful ways, that Biden is at the top of the game for anybody on that. I mean, Biden has spent a lot of money in economically troubled areas that voted 4-1 for Donald Trump. He's fulfilling his promise that I'm the president of all the people. And I think that, he's not an inspiring person. Nobody gets up in the morning like people did with John F. Kennedy was running and going, oh, I want to do this. That's not the choice. The choice is, do you want a competent hand on the tiller or do you want a crazy man? And I think that choice is very clear and very easy to make. A bigger question I might ask the Democrats is, do you want to run Kamala Harris again for vice president? Because in a number of cases where she was called upon and was given opportunities to really say something, I think she flubbed it. Her lack of knowledge of foreign affairs and world history. She's a very good campaigner. She won every campaign she's ever run for, unexpectedly in some cases. But she doesn't have the same issue of charisma. So who is coming along? And the Democrats need to say, well, we're going to get Joe Biden reelected, and we are going to work on our bench, because in 2024, we're going to present you somebody in their 40s or 50s, or maybe their 60s, but hopefully their 40s or 50s. And see the years from 2024 to 2029 as 2025 to 2029 as rebuilding years, as they say in football or baseball.
Yeah, I had a big argument just this morning with a guy who's a former White House correspondent, very well-respected news guy, and he was talking about Kamala, and I think she's really flawed, and I think we have short memories on this. I mean, she doesn't campaign well, and as you say, I don't think she handles situations that shouldn't be that hard that well. But you've got then the Klobuchars and the Sherrod Browns of the world, and you do need to raise their profile because people just don't really know them. And I think you make a really good point about name recognition and the rest. All right, I've kept you too long. You're great. We're linking to your pieces, both of them in the New Republic, also in dcreport.org. David, great.
And put down to ask me on March 13th whether I was wrong or not.
Yes.
The batting average falls.
That's right. All right. There's,
feel it in your.
I appreciate you being here all the time, my friend. Thank you so much,
Take
David
care.
Cay
See you,
Johnston.
Mark.
All right. David Cay Johnston. How about that?
The Mark Thompson Show.
Really cool to visit with David. Tony, please remind me to remind you to link to the pieces in the New Republic and also at DC Report. So
I already have them ready.
Oh, you're the best, pal.
I mean, I can throw them in chat right now if you want for people too.
Very cool.
Yeah.
We'll just put them in the...
they'll be in description. Everyone will be in description.
Yeah, and when we drop this video separately.
Mm-hmm.
I am so glad you're here. Please smash the like button like a boss. Coming up, I've got a little bit of a palate cleanser for you. Almost literally. One of your favorite ice cream flavors is going away. I know it's a little off-brand for this show that deals with heavy politics all the time, but I will get you there. And then I'll swing you back to an insanely important Alabama ruling. I don't know if you saw this. It happened kind of after hours for us. But the Alabama ruling that embryos are children is super important. And Florida is putting forward legislation that is adjacent to that. So we have a lot to do. I'll take you from the most intense to the least intense in the next half hour. Smash the like button like a boss.
Smash it with your iron rod.
Kim is away today if you're just joining us. So I am solo, but excited. Short break, and then the magic of ice cream comes alive. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show. The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Jada had nothing to do with it.
Hey, Mark, it's George Santos here. A lot of people are telling me you're a liar.
That's pure speculation.
We're in better shape, but I don't think we're in wildly better shape.
I love it when you're angry.
Your Honor, I'd like to ask for a recess.
Where are my weed smokers at?
What do you think I'm going to say to you?
Don't talk to me that way.
That was very inappropriate. That's not fake. That's real. Seriously, what the
I love it.
It was great. I loved it.
It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
It's fantastic.
Whoever is producing this thing has no idea what they're doing.
The science is ridiculous.
Right on, everybody. Thanks for being here. Smash the like button. By the way, I don't know if you're familiar with Sinclair Broadcasting. Thank you, Wes. Tony put up your contribution for a second. I appreciate that. $5 super sticker.
Big
We're
shout
a
out.
crowd-funded show. So if you have the moment to try to keep us on the air, you can take that moment and go to themarkthompsonshow.com, and there are hot links to Patreon and PayPal, and you can be part of the community that keeps us on the air every day. And we post your name at the end of the show if you're a Patreon or PayPal community member, but we give you the shout-out here if you give us the super stickers and super chats. And some of you have been really cool after hours and made contributions as well. In fact, I'll go through and this week I'll give you guys shout outs too. Really appreciate
Big shout out.
all the ways that you support the show. Sinclair Broadcasting is a group of stations under one, I'd suggest, almost monopolistic power called Sinclair Broadcasting. In other words, they own a bunch of stations. And these local stations don't underestimate the power of their news organizations to get disinformation out there. They do a really good job of it. In fact, people who work at Sinclair will tell you privately and quietly that they literally get news releases and disinformation statements that they then integrate into their local TV news coverage. But the success of Sinclair's programming is going to be associated with kind of, if it bleeds, it leads, kind of sensational local news. Illegal drug use, failing schools, other societal ills have always been the core elements of local TV news, but in the Sinclair world, they're going to make the conservative overlay live with a lot of that if it bleeds, it leads stuff. So the Sinclair people are big supporters of President Trump, as you know. And in a private meeting, they refer readers to one staffer at Fox 45 producing a documentary called Baltimore is Dying. And increasingly, they're going to link the issues of major cities with Republican talking points. Sinclair stations deliver messages, this is a quote, that appeal to older white suburban audiences, and they play up crime stories in a way that is disproportionate to their statistical presence. That's from the author of a book called Shadow Network, Media, Money, and the Secret Hub of the Radical Right. I've talked to you a lot about the fact that if you own the messaging system, you really own the information. And look at Sinclair. They cover a lot of territory. Tony's got it up on the screen for you now. This is essentially the imprint and footprint of political propaganda that will come through local TV news. And again, I'll remind you of something else we talked about, which is the complete loss of newspapers in so many places that used to do investigative pieces, reveal corruption, or even give you some degree of objective reality. But let's be fair, many newspapers also had a political agenda. But I'm saying the number of news sources is drying up. And what you're seeing in the, again, I'd suggest monopolistic control that Sinclair has over all of these stations is you have right-wing conservative views. I'm talking about hard right that will increasingly be represented in all the news they do as an overlay. They have essentially a focus on societal problems and then conservative political solutions. They talk about, for example, in Seattle, they have a station. They have a segment called Crisis in the Classroom, focusing on dysfunction in city schools. Now, you may say, well, there is a crisis in the classroom. Why is that a bad thing? It's because of the intense political overlay. That's why there's an issue. But wow, when you talk about the power of media, you have to look at the power of local news, as I say, especially for those older voters who are scared. And when they're scared, they'll hold their nose and they'll vote for Donald Trump, who's beating the same drum that Sinclair Broadcasting is. So I think it's a cautionary moment. And frankly, that horse is out of the barn already. So, closing the barn door now doesn't do us much good. It's really more of a phenomenon that we can all be aware of. So that's that on information.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Now, a palate cleanser, and then back to, as I say, a frightening ruling in the state of Alabama. The extraordinary thing that I just can't understand is how this ice cream flavor is going away. This was once a year-round staple, it is noted, and it has now fallen out of favor. I wonder if I should have people, I'll just tell you what it is. The answer is vanilla chocolate chip ice cream. Vanilla.
What?
Vanilla chocolate chip ice cream. It's a solid choice. There it is.
Come on.
I love vanilla chocolate chip ice cream, but apparently it is losing to all the other cool flavors. I mean, when I say cool flavors, I'm talking about like cookie dough ice cream and birthday cake ice cream. Chocolate chip used to be a flavor we'd produce constantly, said Caroline Crowley, communications specialist for Babcock Dairy Plant, which has 75 years of ice cream making under its belt. That's in Madison, Wisconsin. But chocolate chip hasn't been a staple for a decade, she says. Now it's seasonal.
What?
Wow. It's made for summer only. And even then, chocolate chip is not such a hot seller.
Sayonara, sucker!
Don't say that. I love it. They're taking away the essence of choice. 4.5 months taken to sell through 110 gallons of chocolate chip. 3 months for the same amount of chocolate chip cookie dough. We stock chocolate chip cookie dough all year long, she says. It's creeping up on vanilla in popularity. Wow.
That's not fake. That's real.
The company had chocolate chip as a staple until the early 2000s. But with growing demand for flavors like cookies and cream, chocolate chip has become a market-specific flavor based on consumer preferences. So if there is a market where they really particularly like it, then it stays. Otherwise, it's losing ground all this other stuff. I got to say, chocolate chip cookie dough is pretty good. But there are those who love the chocolate chip.
Mark, isn't chocolate chip cookie dough technically just chocolate chip with like plus a little bit?
Yeah, but that cookie dough does make a difference.
It does, but it depends. I agree. But yeah.
It does make a difference, Tony. The cookie dough is good. And the other thing that's really good is cookies and cream. I mean, again, you could say, well, isn't cookies and cream just basically chocolate chip? Well, it's the same kind of flavor profile, but there are differences, and that cookies and cream is really good. It's not going away yet, but it is not going to be as ubiquitous, as available, as, it's not going to take up the real estate that it used to take up. A major ice cream maker based in Oregon called Tillamook noted that vanilla's fortunes have slid too.
What?
Yes, vanilla ice cream, according to industry data, also dipping in sales 6.4% from 2018 to 2022. But how much did chocolate chip decline? Okay, vanilla was just 6.4%. Chocolate chip declined 22%. Cookies and cream rose 72.5%.
What?
Yes, I'm telling you, can't deny all of this. So the flavor bench is now brownie batter, chocolate hazelnut, German chocolate cake, and a dark chocolate cookies and cream. People eat vanilla, they say, with liquor, like rum, brandy, but they're really beginning to face the reality in ice cream land. Chip by chip, chocolate chip ice cream melting away, as you saw. Sad, I think. Sad. Mm-hmm.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, I know.
This is a word from the Lord, and he's not happy.
Yeah, the Lord likes that chocolate chip. The Lord is old school, I find, on most things. You know, very old school, the Lord. But in Antioch, the library is now going to reopen. They said they were going to close because of crime. Antioch is in East Bay. Okay, so Bay Area listeners and viewers, you know Antioch. But for those who are elsewhere, just to let you know where it is, so in the East Bay of San Francisco, they're now going to reopen on Tuesday. This will happen today, I guess. They decided to close it because of repeated dangerous incidents there. The list of reasons documented in an email sent to the city. It wasn't just danger. They had couples openly having sex in the library hallway and bathroom. Cops apprehended a wanted suspect using a computer. That suspect was in the teen section. Drug use in the library vicinity. Car break-ins there at the library. And patrons verbally assaulting staff. The county library originally had said it has made it a decision to close it after these dangerous incidents in the last few months that have threatened safety and security of patrons and staff. But now they say, all right, we're going to open it. But there are hate messages and drug use inside the building, and they found blood and bullet casings on the property. I mean, it sounds like this weird ground zero for a lot of ugly stuff. Anyway, I think it's sad that, the library's become this. I'm sure you do too, but they now will reopen, apparently, despite the fact that they'd intended to close. So that's one thing happening in the Bay Area, but this is the big news.
The Mark Thompson Show.
That may affect you nationally. Alabama's Supreme Court is ruling. Alabama's Supreme Court ruling that frozen embryos are, quote, children. In a ruling that was heavy on theology, the Alabama Supreme Court is going to allow a couple to sue for the wrongful death of their frozen embryos obtained through in vitro fertilization. This is a court case that pro-choice, rights groups are warning could have dangerous implications for fertility treatments like in vitro fertilization. So the Alabama Supreme Court ruled on Friday that this decision to dismiss a lawsuit that happened on the lower court in which a couple sued an Alabama fertility clinic and a hospital for what they called was, quote, the wrongful death of their frozen embryos. They are saying that the wrongful death of a minor act is sweeping and unqualified. So there's an act on the books, the wrongful death of a minor, okay? It's called the Wrongful Death of a Minor Act. It applies to all children, said the Supreme Court in Alabama, born and unborn, without limitation. It is not the role of this court to craft a new limitation based on our own view of what is or is not wise public policy. That is especially true whereas here, they say, the people of this state have adopted a constitutional amendment directly aimed at stopping courts from excluding unborn life from legal protections. The ruling pointed, and I won't get too much into the X's and O's, but just to round it out, this is in Alabama again, so the ruling pointed to the Alabama Constitution, which argues that each person was made in God's image, meaning each life has an incalculable value that, quote, cannot be wrongfully destroyed without incurring the wrath of a holy God. That's the Supreme Court writing that. The Medical Association of the state of Alabama previously warned that a ruling like this could bring about harmful consequences for fertility treatment in Alabama. They say the potential detrimental impact on IVF treatment in Alabama cannot be overstated. They filed this in a brief. The increased exposure, they went on, to wrongful death liability, as advocated by the appellants, would at best substantially increase the costs associated with IVF, right? You're going to, just to step out of it for a second, you're going to have to now insure yourself the same way doctors do against this kind of lawsuit. More ominously, they say, this is a quote from their brief, more ominously, the increased risk of legal exposure might result in Alabama's fertility clinics shutting down and fertility specialists moving to other states to practice fertility medicine. Alabama has a total abortion ban. It went into effect after the Dobbs decision in 2022, just to remind you of where Alabama is. So there's that. And then in Florida, the architects of Florida's 6-week abortion ban started the year by pushing for another, possibly even more dangerous anti-choice law. Republican Senators Aaron Grawl and State Representative Jenna Persons-Malika introduced bills to the state legislature this month that would allow parents to recover civil damages for the wrongful death of a fetus or, quote, unborn child. The bill states that a pregnant woman cannot be sued, but the physicians can be. Some advocates believe that the legislation could be used against doctors who provide abortion care and fertility treatments. The House bill has one more hearing. Again, this is a bill that's being introduced, okay? One more hearing before a floor vote. And then the Senate version has yet to have a committee hearing. It's likely, this is in Florida, that the bill will become law, given the Republican supermajority there and its proven anti-choice track record. This is going to be weaponized. This law will be weaponized against those who provide women with reproductive choices that include abortion. So OBGYNs, when there are miscarriages involved, etc. Physicians who offer reproductive care like in vitro fertilization, they'll be covered as well. So I think it's scary. I think it's the power, I mentioned it to you occasionally, of the heavy religiosity that informs so much of legislation these days in America. And I think there's going to be more of it.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I want to thank you all for being here. There was a pretty big merger. I didn't know whether I should smash the like button like you.
With your iron rod.
If you could smash the like button, I appreciate it. It's free, and it helps us in the algorithmic world that we now occupy in YouTube. I have to tell you something. What we do here, I'm starting to feel like the show is the least of what I do. I'm so hip deep in all the, you know what I mean, Tony? The algorithm and the shorts and the hashtags and now the...
Thanks, Tony.
I was talking to someone who was great. He's like a marketing whiz. And I was talking to him at an event I attended on Friday night. And he gave me this whole laundry list of things to do. None of them have to do with content for the show. Like, I'm a content guy. Now I'm in this world where I'm, downloading different apps that have to do with things that have nothing to do with content. They have to do with spreading your reach,
That's kind of what my job's supposed to be, right?
Yeah,
well, take that weight off of you.
You do a nice job of it. You really do. But I'm just saying, it's just
there's
weird.
The hustle is so much now.
Thank you. It's the hustle. And it's exhausting. It really is.
Yeah.
It's don't get me wrong. I feel it's a challenge, and that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm dedicated to it. But it's also, it's exhausting. So, anyway, back to this story about
The Mark Thompson Show.
Capital One is buying Discover, $35 billion. I mean, you know where I am on this stuff. I'm usually against a lot of these mergers, especially these big mergers. Can you guess why? Because it's always bad for the consumer. It's always bad for the consumer. Tell me a merger where you've done well. When your cable company merges, do you do well? Does your service get better? No. When DirecTV merges, does your satellite service get? No. I mean, those are things that, just two examples when it comes to service, are really kind of so easily demonstrated. You just pick up the phone and try to get somebody on the phone to help you with whatever. Have you called American Express? Have you called Capital One? It's really hard to get someone on the phone who's not just following. By the way, it's hard to get someone on the phone, full stop. But what you do is you get a bunch of prompts saying that they can check your balance, check your latest transactions. That's the stuff they do. So that's the consumer, you want to call it help part of things, service part of things. But also things related to pricing. Those are going to be more, because the competitive marketplace is being undermined. But this is a huge, huge acquisition. And I think it's, unlike Visa and MasterCard, Discover has its own card networks. That means that the company itself helps broker the fees paid between merchants and consumers. Discover also processes payments itself, while many credit card issuers do not. Capital One CEO Richard Fairbank is saying that the deal will build a payments network that can compete with the largest payments networks and payments companies. The deal would rank among the biggest mergers and acquisitions in 2024. Well, I mean, it's still starting, but there was a dip in what they call M&A, right? Mergers and acquisitions in 2023 because of economic uncertainty and interest rates, you'll recall. But now 90% increase compared to this time last year. It's a big, big deal. Capital One buying Discover, $35 billion, building their own network, as it turns out.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah. Let me quickly check. Tony, is there anything I need to pay attention to? Kelly Malloy, what up, Kelly Malloy? Kelly, always there supporting us, and today with a $5 super sticker.
Big shout out.
Thank you so, so much. Scott Rittenberg, $10.
Big shout out.
Will the recent approval of the Trump Media Group merger benefit Trump financially? I've seen Google News say that he can gain $4 billion in that deal. I will tell you honestly, I don't know. I have to look at that.
I think that has something to do with the Truth Social, right? That whole
exactly.
Stuff?
It's Truth Social. I can't imagine, to be perfectly blunt about it, I can't imagine that he gains $4 billion in the deal. I mean, the deal might be valued at that. I don't know, though. I have to look at it more closely. I did intend to tell you that Parler is coming back, Parler, just on that. Thank you so much for that, Scott. But and I'll research it further. But Parler, I don't know if I put it in the show today or not. No, I don't think I did. But I was seeing that it's making something of a comeback. And you'll remember that's that place where there was sort of like a right-wing, conservative, I don't want to say toxicity, but remember they shut down and now they're making a comeback a little bit. Supposedly they're going to return this year. They're relaunching. So that's the other social media company. But as to Trump's, I'll need more, and I'll get more. There it is, conservative social media app Parler planning to relaunch ahead of the 2024 election. Well, that's good. That can only be a good thing. What up, Ashley Petrus? Come on, Ashley Petrus.
Big shout out.
Thank you for a 20 spot super sticker supporting this show. I'm not going to cry, but I'm so close to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. You guys are great. We're crowdfunded, so I really do appreciate it, especially as I have to apparently do all of these other things with the show that have nothing to do with, we have new people to bring on in some way, new services to bring on. So as we bring these services on, we have a few more expenses. So I really appreciate, we're trying to save up for those Trump running shoes, which we really want. I wanted to get them for
There's never been anything like this.
Tony for the holidays. If you want to support the show, visit themarkthompsonshow.com. Click Patreon or PayPal links to contribute. Now, I will finish with some good news. There's no way it's worth $10 billion. Randy, I'll give you that. Here you go. According to an article I saw, Truth Social is now worth $10 billion. What's Trump's stake? I don't believe that it's worth $10 billion. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I'd like to see the numbers on that. I guess it's worth whatever anyone will pay for it, but that seems like a high valuation. Did you get the picture I sent you? No? Tony? You're looking now. You didn't look.
Thanks, Tony.
You were thinking about something else. You were doing something else. You've been up since 3 a.m. My God, I do a lot. What is it? So that picture, can you see it there? You see the DHL driver? He returned from Chile. My luggage, everyone. But it's only one bag. But that bag has been on the road for 2 months. And finally, over the weekend, that's Courtney looking down at it. It did arrive. So it's pretty...
There's never been anything like this.
Well, there really hasn't been anything like this. I'm still waiting for the other bag.
And you paid the extortion money for both bags, right?
I paid the extortion money, which was over $2,000.
Oh,
so in order to get the bags returned, I paid over $2,000. They said, we found your bags. It'll be over $2,000 for them to be returned. And they said, or you can just cancel the return, which I'm sure most people do. It's a scam, in my view. I mean, I paid it because I will get it back. I'm not paying over $2,000. I will get that money back. But the idea that they could lose bags and then charge you to return them, it's utter lunacy, absolute lunacy. But we're almost through it. 2 months. My bag was lost on December 23rd, and the first bag has come home. So, and perhaps most importantly, the liquor. I bought high-end rum. Heather asking the key question, was anything missing from the bag? First of all, I have almost nothing of value in the bag, except I bought high-end rum and wine down there. And that did make it. It was intact, everyone. I know.
Nice.
Yes, so there is that. But anyway, so it was a bizarre addition to our President's Day. But now you're up on it. A few of them have asked about it. The U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission allowed Donald Trump's media technology company to merge with a blank check acquisition vehicle in a deal that currently values the parent of his social media app, Truth Social, as much as $10 billion. Wow, that's very impressive. And thank you, Randy, for pointing that out. And then Tony, thank you for chasing that down.
Thanks, Tony.
Wow. Well, we'll have to x-ray those finances, and there need to be an exit for Trump to get that money. You know, there has to be some kind of exit or stock liquidation, I suppose. Anyway, tomorrow, John Rothman's here.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Also, a fill-in for Kim tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
The great Teresa Strasser joins us tomorrow. That's right. Till then, bye-bye.